Hello there, it's Fiona from Weekly Sewing Bee. So, yesterday I made a dress. I know, hope you can see it. I think it's cute. Anyway, today with the scraps I'm making a purse. Now, what you need for this, mate, scissors, string, knitting needle. I know. The knitting needle is for the handle. I'm going to do a sewn handle. Now the piece of fabric I have, this is the biggest piece I've got left. So I'm going to do the backing of the bag. So one side's going to be this colour and one side's going to be this colour. And a zip. Some lining for the inside of the bag and some interface. So what I'm going to do is it's going to have the zip at the top, and then this flared out bit is going to be reduced down to a square with pleats. Now the reason I'm doing that is because I do want a clutch bag, but I don't want a pencil case looking bag. So that makes perfect sense to me. And as always with myself, the pattern is going to come from the cloth available. And I'm not kidding you when I say there's not a lot of cloth here. So if I turn this over, the basic pattern is going to be down here, and then I'm going to lop that bit off the top, and then the zip's going to be here. Okay, I'm sure that makes no sense at all. To help it keep the shape, I'm going to make the lining that size, but I'm going to have a little bit which is just the fabric at the top. So, okay, I'll get cutting and hopefully it will be clearer then. So, hello there. Okay, so I now have my 6 bits of fabric, three different types. So I have the 2 for the lining, I have the interface, which I'm going to put to the side, and then I have the outer wrap. So let's make a start. Now I would like the zip to be facing outward. Yeah, that makes sense. Makes life a bit easier. So I'm going to take one of these and I'm going to have the zip head facing inwards. And then I'm going to take a piece of lining and I'm going to open the zip halfway just to make life easier for myself. Okay, so I've got my 3 pieces of fabric and I'm going to put them under my sewing foot. Now if you have a zipper foot, that's great. If not, we can just make do, can't we? So I'm going to just ask the machine to start sewing. And I'm just going to keep an eye that I've got all 3 pieces of fabric. And when I've come probably halfway, I'm going to leave the needle down and I'm just going to root around and I'm going to open this zip up. This is also that I can get a nice smooth line and I don't damage the machine by trying to sew over the metal. So that's now out of the way and I can start sewing again. And when I'm done, I'm going to turn the fabric over and just check that I've got all 3 layers of fabric. So that the zip's attached, the lining's attached, and the outer layer is attached. So let's trim off that thread so that we can get to the other side. So again, I would like my fabric to be facing outwards, so I want it facing the fabric. I'm going to put the zip head halfway and I'm just going to find the other piece of lining, and then I'm going to line all these three up, and sew. Try not to get anything else caught, because of, you know, it's all a bit everywhere, isn't it? Look. But yeah. So let's get the machine sewing. I've done a couple of reverse stitches just to help it, and I'm going to just get the machine sewing. So once I've gone a fair way along, or enough to get rid of the zip head, I'm lifting the foot, keeping the needle down, and I am fidgeting, you know, it really is. And then I'm closing the zip. I can bring it round so you can see maybe, but just close that zip so it's all done, all out of the way. There we go. Just about to give up on it then. I think sometimes they know, don't they? Lining everything up again. And then I'm going to put my foot down. And then I'm just literally sewing to the end. So, lift it up. And my bobbin has run out. Okay, bear with me. Ah, it never runs smooth, does it? Just when you're placing your zip, just remember that the head of the zip needs to see the fabric on the outside. That's the best way for me to remember it. So I'm just going to have a look. I have gone a bit skewy, but because this is my own design, I can cheat and trim it. Okay. So the next step is we're going to place the lining on the outer layers. Now how I'm going to do that is I'm going to mark it with a pin so that I've got the halfway point between the outer fabric, it's both outer fabric, well no, one layer of outer fabric. Now to make life a bit easier, I'm going to do that trimming now, because what I've done is not cut it very well, and you can see I've pushed it along as well, so just not ideal, but we can overcome, I think. Lovely. So I've got that marked halfway. What I'm going to do, hello there. So welcome back. I've got my bobbin rethreaded and I'm just going to finish up this zip. So that's grand. Lovely. Now what we're going to do next is, this is what we're left with. So we have two outers and two linings, and that's grand. So the next job is, we need on the inside, so you can see the loose bit of the zip, we need to place the interface, because this is going to give it strength. Now to do it, I'm going to mark halfway between the outer layer and the interface, and I'm going to put the pin on the outside. So I'm going to gather this to the pin, and then I can gather this to the end. And the same on this side. So we've got the outer side, we've got the interface on the inside, and we're going to just put a marker pin halfway. This is so it gathers it even. Now I'm going to take the machine and I'm going to place the interface and the outer layer next to each other, and then I'm going to put it in. So you can see how much bagginess we've got to get rid of. I've left myself a hemming allowance. This is because I don't want my seams to be too fat. And I'm literally, with every inch or so every centimetre or so, I'm going to push in extra bits. Okay, so I've got rid of all the excess in it as smallish clumps as I can. I'm going to remove the pin, and then I'm going to get rid of the excess from the other half. And it literally is, I'm just pushing extra fabric in. And again, I'm leaving myself a little hem allowance when I come off the interface. So that's that half done, as it were. That's what it looks like from that side, and that's what it looks like from the other side. Now I'm going to do the same again, so I'm going to put my interface flat down on the sewing machine and give myself a little bit of hem allowance, and I'm going to place that under the couple of reverse stitches, and then I'm just going to pick up the excess and push it under. So I'll try and do it with my other hand so you can see. I just come up to the middle, and then I'm going to do the same again with this side. So as smallish puckers as you can do, and obviously keeping your interface flat. And not forgetting the hem allowance. So that's as far as I can go on this bit of the project. Next job is to make the handle. Funny machine. So that's where we're up to now. It's all good. Now the handle is just going to be a little wrist strap. So what I'm going to do, instead of trying to put it through a binding machine or anything, because I needed it to fold in and then go over the top, I'm going to cheat and I'm going to use a piece of string. Now I've got that in the middle. I'm going to fold that over, and then I'm going to fold this over, and then I'm going to sew the string and the string, and then I'm going to get to the corner of these two pieces, this fold of fabric, the outer side of the fold. Now the reason I'm sewing over the string is to make it easier for me to turn it around, and the reason I'm sewing it over twice is because the first bit is right on the fold. I want it to be completely secure. I think it would be a hell of a job to actually turn it round without the string. I'm not just going to use the string, I'm going to use the knitting needle as well. So this is just a running stitch, and what happens is the string gets pushed into the fold. If I wanted to sew over the string, I would hear an almighty clunk. So I know that it's well out of the way. Pretty much the same as if I was doing piping. So that's that done. Now what I'm going to do is I've left a half inch flap, and I'm going to fold that over. I'm going to tug the string, and I'm going to pull and push and just try and get this through. Now ideally you should be using the blunt end of the needle, so you know, but we'll just make do. Now what you don't want is just to pull the string so that you don't have it, so you'll end up with a knot, but you know, we're using the string just as much as we're using the knitting needle, and of course pulling the outside. So you can see it does go, and then we can pull a bit more out with the string. So it's all quite amicable. What I'm doing now is I'm just pushing the end up, and then I'm cutting the end off. And the reason I pushed it up was just to get as much of this as possible, because this is going to be your handle. Now if it does look as if it's twisted or anything else like that, what we can do is we can just sew over a seam on the fold, a top stitch seam, so that it makes it lie flat, and maybe makes it look a bit more professional. So there we go. We've got our handle. We can put that to the side for the next step, and we can get rid of the string and the knitting needle. Alrighty, so what we've got here, my two bits of interface, my outers and my inners. What I'm now going to do is I'm going to sew these two outers together with the interface upwards, so that I'm going back for more of a square. I have this bit for my fold over at the top, and then I need to sew my two linings together, and I need to leave a hole for turning it inside out. So I'm going to keep the zips shut because that's going to make life easier for me. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to start sewing there and then sew the whole way round. So this is just the two layers of lining, making sure that it's sort of lying flat against the zip. And away we go. What a funny old machine you are. Are you sulking? I see what's happened. Sometimes when you get this mat at the bottom on the thing, it's not actually the bobbin, it's actually the tension at the top that's come undone. So, because we've been doing lots of stop and start sewing, the machine's got slightly offended. And it's had a hard day as well. Made a dress. So, here we go. I'm just literally trimming that off. And now I'm going to place it back under the machine, making sure that I've got a little half an inch of hem allowance so that I can turn it inside out neatly. Okay, so away I go, this time with my thread through my tension. I'm going to go right up to the end and do a nice sharp corner. Okay, so when I come to my zip, I don't want to sew over it because I don't want to break the machine. But I'm going to go as close to it as I possibly can. And I'm going to happily leave the sticky out bits on my side so that I can see that I'm not sewing over them. Okay, now the outer side here, I really don't know if you'd like to do this in stages. It does seem all a bit tricky, doesn't it, with those gathers. What I'm going to do is, because I need to make sure that everything meets up, is I'm just going to put the two corners under the machine, and I'm going to push the interface out of the way, and then I'm going to sew the two bits of fabric. So if I pulled them down, actually that might be a bit clearer. I'm going to line up my two seams, and then I'm going to just sew. Just sew. Okay, I'm going to sew as close to the zip as I'm happy with. But I'm not going to sew over the zip. And I'm going to do the same the other side. So I've got rid of my interfacing, and I'm going to keep that all nice and out of the way. And then I'm just going to sew the two outer layers. Now I have no idea if it's clearer because I've got two colours or not. When I was making the dress in this material, I did think, well, it might be nice if I was making it in completely different colours for each side, and then everyone will be able to see what I'm doing. But I don't know. I don't think I'd wear it, so it'd be a bit of a waste of material. Okay, last seam. I'm going to sew these two together, but I want to make sure that I've got everything on the outside, as it were. So I don't want any of these folded up in there. So I'm just going to sweep it with my fingers. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew here so that both these lines are on the outside. Okay. Now what I should have done on one of these sides, I'm just seeing if one's quite low down, I should have sewn the handle in. So I can only apologise for that. I'm just going to see if those stitches are convincible to just unpick. Yes. So I've just put a little hole in there, and I'm going to place the handle in there. So that's all I need, a little hole, and I'm going to push it through, but I want to make sure that I've got both ends sticking out so that I'm sewing it on like that. There's me saying I've finished with the knitting needle. Could use it now. So I'm just pushing the two bits of handle in for the fold. So that's securely in, and I've got both those sticking out. I'm going to place it under the sewing machine. Lovely. Okay, so that's what we're left with. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to open the zip up because it's closed at the moment, and I'm opening it up from the wrong side, so if it takes a moment, then it takes a moment. But it is a case of, it's so much better to sew whilst it's closed, because then everything keeps its shape. And it's a case of, once I get the zip started, it's going to be really easy to open. And until I get the zip started, it's going to be a bit tricky. There we go. So, now what I need to do is I need to put my hand inside the lining, and I need to grab the bottom of this and then pull it through. So that I have my nice pleats at the bottom, which are purely decorative, and push my corners out slightly. So there was the handle that we put in as an afterthought, and I get that as mitered as possible, nice sharp corners. Now what I need to do is, I've got my lining here with the turny inside out bit, so I need to just push my fingers in there, and then I can just sew that up. And I'm going to put any loose bits as well in as well, so I can keep it as tidy as possible. So that's that. I'm going to take it as close to the foot as possible, and then it's just a straight line sewing. Now because this is cotton, it pretty much stays where I put it. Now if I was making this for a present or something, or even to sell, then I think I would change the colour there, so it just looks really, really nice. Now it is quite tricky. What we have to do is we've got our two loose lines of interfacing, and we need to put the inner bit of the purse in between the two. So what I've done is I've got one piece of interfacing in each hand, and then with my other fingers I'm going to push it in. Okay, this is just so you've got interfacing on both sides, and yeah, and I really didn't want to put interfacing down the seams because I didn't want the seams to be bulky. Slightly different at the bottom because I'm going for a more bulky look. So there we have it. That's the leftover purse. We have the zip on the top, so we can see that there. What I always planned to do in the original drawing, and why I made the inner lining smaller, was I'm going to run a line of stitches just round the top there. So I know this is another bit that you're not going to be able to see. Because it's a circle, I'm going to start in the middle and literally I'm following along a line at the top. And this just gives it, well, okay, two things. When I'm using this purse, it's not going to pull out. When I close the zip, I'm not going to get the satin caught up or anything like that. And it just gives it a more professional looking finish. So I'm just going over the seam here. I've got to be careful that I don't go near the zip. And I've got to then pull it round so that I've got that lovely, is that ½ an inch? And then I'm going to sew along this line. And then I'm going to come round and I'm going to go through this seam that's the other end and join up with the middle. So not only is it keeping everything where it should be, but it's also adding life to it by making it, yeah, there's nothing worse than getting something caught in a zip, is there? and that will protect me from it because it's just tidying up the top. So I do need just to trim all these ends, and sometimes I can sort of sew the loose ends in, and sometimes obviously I can't. So yes. So now we have our matching little clutch, which only really needs your keys and a little bit of money. Oh, another thing, I don't really like putting the handle on the zip, because if you're sort of swinging about you can open it by accident, so that's why I always put it on the side. Okay, well I hope you like it. If you were to buy the material, it's the smallest amount possible, and you could probably get away with making two of these little clutches with just a fat quarter. You know, there's very little material involved. The interfacing I've used is iron-on interfacing. The only reason for that is I always buy iron-on interfacing and then never iron it on. It's the same price, you see, so there is logic in that. And with the feeling that I don't want a large selection of interfacing in my room, I'm quite happy just to have one that does it all. Okay, thank you ever so much for watching. My name's Fiona from Weekly Sewing Bee, and hopefully I'll catch you again soon.